Happy Halloween to everybody. If you are listening on the radio all across the country, whether it's Sirius XM 80 or the ESPN app or our great ESPN radio stations across the country, today is Halloween, and Michelle Smallman is dressed as the 90s Dennis Rodman on the Bulls, marrying himself for a book promotion. Cece is the championship-winning version, post-title of MJ, and I am Phil Jackson today. Just your typical day at the office for us. The highlights courtesy of WBAL, Ravens Radio Network, as Baltimore wins last night, Thursday Night Football at 28-6. Dolphins stink. They're 2-7 this year. I mean, what do you want me to say? They stink. And there are moments last night where you're like, are you a real team? As Cece's been pointing out, saying, hey, in the Halloween theme, Miami Dolphins were dressed as a football team last night, but they didn't actually look like one. 25 of 40, 261 and a pick for Tua. Tua's played 9 games this year. Do you know 4 of them he's thrown more interceptions and touchdowns? 4 different games, more interceptions and touchdowns.
You thought Tua was the problem for the Miami Dolphins last night?
No, but I'm just pointing out that he has not had a good season this year, and he's talked a lot.
Yeah, but we got to be fair, though. Like in my Mad Dog voice, be fair now.
Be fair.
Be fair.
So now you're Canty dressed as MJ imitating dog.
That's great.
Got it. Okay.
You see how that works? The pick that he threw last night was inconsequential. I thought Tua did a decent job of being able to operate the offense. He had 150 yards passing, completing 68% of his passes in the first half. Things just came off the rails because they couldn't convert in the red zone, and then they had those inopportune mistakes, including a couple of turnovers from receivers with the last name Washington. Matter of fact, if you were a Dolphins receiver with the last name Washington, you fumbled the ball last night. Like at some point, those guys have to understand the way that they want to play basketball on grass, you have to protect the football. Right? And Tua did a good job of being methodical and operating the offense. So I'm not going to sit here and crush Tua today because I thought that he was the least of the Dolphins' worries.
But he also wasn't helping them to the level he needs to for what he's getting paid. I mean, 0 for 3 and an interception on passes thrown 15 yards or more downfield. Second consecutive game without a completion thrown that far downfield. When you're the guy that is the face of the franchise and that's getting paid that much money, you're expected to be great. And he just hasn't been.
So the other parts of this, though, in terms of what happens next. So Mike McDaniel seemingly has been on the hot seat since the end of the last season when they send out the press release letting us know, hey, he's coming back.
Yes.
That literally is the verbal placement of a coach on the hot seat. I know Al Michaels last night and Kirk Herbstreit on the Prime broadcast brought up, everybody's talking about the hot seat. We appreciate that, the shout out, because we should, right? Mike McDaniel, unfortunately, and this team don't seem to click right now. Mike McDaniel got very frustrated with his team, and he had this to say on the sideline outburst that was caught on camera last night.
That was that self-inflicted wounds that, we've been putting such an emphasis on, all things related to our operation, and in a critical fourth and one where we were pretty fired up about the defensive look. It was what we were calling the play for, and that's flat out a controllable that our team knows that keeps you from winning. So I was irate at nothing but our self-inflicted wound.
It's funny. So he was talking about the one with the penalty on the 4th down, right? That pushed them back. The one for me, that 4th and 2 from the 13-yard line.
Ooh, that was bad.
With a minute plus to go in the second quarter, down 14-6, was one of the worst 4th downs in terms of execution I think I have ever seen. Tua threw to a spot that a player wasn't at because the player read the thing wrong. It was just a horrible miscommunication.
Well, I mean, it was terrible execution. I think it's fair to question the play call, too. You want to go with a slot fade with your running back against Kyle Hamilton, an all-pro safety? How do you think that's going to work out?
Okay, you need to help me on this. So what happened, for those who didn't see it, is Tua threw the ball in the end zone on a corner route, in essence, fade, however you want to look at it.
And the Ravens were bringing pressure. So the ball's got to come out hot.
There was literally not a receiver there. There was multiple receivers kind of shorter.
Yeah,
so
Kyle Hamilton cut off the route.
What was the actual play call? To go deep? Not deep, but to the corner of the end zone?
It looked like they were trying to isolate Achane.
Okay, and he just ran the wrong route?
No, he didn't run the wrong route. He got cut off by Kyle Hamilton.
And Tua just still threw the ball to no one.
Yeah, he threw it to the spot because it's a pressure. The ball has got to come out. The Baltimore Ravens in that scenario were bringing more than the Miami Dolphins could block. So Tua's got to drift back, fade, and buy as much time as he can and let it go and get the ball to a spot. He's relying on the receiver to get to the spot. But if you're drawing up a play from an X's and O's in a gotta-have-it situation with your running back on Kyle Hamilton, it's just not a good matchup. There's no world that exists that I think that that's a good matchup for the Miami Dolphins.
It just looked like no one knew what they were doing, from coach, quarterback, receiver. Like, that was one of the worst plays.
It did look like Achane snapped the right off. It doesn't look like he was on the same page with the quarterback. The quarterback was clearly anticipating him going to a spot, and it just didn't work out. That was a bad play. Bad execution. Quite frankly, one of those play calls that I'm sure Mike McDaniel wishes he could have back.
So what happens now? Right? So that's just one, he's talking about his actions and everything.
Yeah, what
that's
happens
just one
now
highlighted moment from last night.
What happens now? They fired a coach. What do you mean
like
what
today?
happens now?
Yeah, how quickly today?
Yeah, they fired a coach.
Even though weeks ago, ownership said they wanted to give this regime runway to try to turn around this season, it didn't seem like they were acting with any sense of urgency as far as dismissals were concerned.
Well, listen, I'm not going to sit here and question the effort from the Miami Dolphins players because I thought the effort was there. I just thought that they made some boneheaded plays. And you have to have a certain level of focus, a certain level of awareness, and that just was not baked into the performance that we got last night. That's on the players, but it's also on the coach. And you can't get rid of all 53, so I think the next best thing is to get rid of the head coach, to shake it up, to try to create some urgency, maybe show a little bit of accountability from an organizational standpoint. And I think the Miami Dolphins are at that point now where they have to do that for their season. Otherwise, it's only going to get uglier from here.
I thought there was a very interesting comment about the job status of one Mike McDaniel postgame from Tua. Let's take a listen to what he had to say after their loss to Baltimore.
Mike, for players that might get dealt with this team now 2-7?
I would say that's above my pay grade. I let those guys upstairs worry about that and do what they need to do in terms of how we're working things with the team. So, yeah.
Thought it was interesting. That's above my pay grade. That happens upstairs because the version of Tua years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, was so connected with Mike McDaniel that he went on an interview with Dan Lebitard on Meadowlark Media and destroyed the previous coach and Brian Flores and talked about how much he loves the new guy. So that comment was not an endorsement. That's not my job. A year and a half ago, he would have said, Mike's my guy. We're in this together. I need to carry out his game plan in a way that we win football games. That is him wiping his hands clean.
But hasn't he done that all season long? Kind of point the finger elsewhere and push things to the side?
And Mike McDaniel has kind of stood by him. You and I, Smalls, Rodman and Phil, you and I said earlier this season, give this man, Mike McDaniel, a chance to coach the team on purpose, not by way of injury, with someone else at quarterback. Whether it's Zach Wilson or Quinn Ewers or they go pick, give him a chance. CeCe said, shut Tua down because what you're doing is you're actually taking a chance that you could have money on your books in 2027 for a quarterback that wasn't good for you in 2025.
Correct.
All of these things that we suggested have not happened, but you think now they may? After last night, after the Atlanta game that they won, you think last night may have been the tipping point?
The coach getting fired. And because you played on Thursday night, you've got 10 days before your next ball game, it makes sense. This is a natural point in the season where you can make that kind of switch. Now, I don't know who the interim coach on the staff would end up being, but it's clear that with Mike McDaniel as your head coach, it's going to be more of the same, which is the team beating themselves. And that can't be acceptable for an NFL owner. That can't be palatable in terms of the product that he saw on the field. Because the last thing you want is for the fan base, the people that consume your entertainment product to be apathetic because of how bad the product is on the field.
Oh, I was going to say they weren't apathetic last night. You heard the boos. You heard the MVP chants for Lamar. That crowd was letting that team and that ownership group know how they felt about that, about what they were witnessing on the football field.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. You're starting to see Mike McDaniel act out of character. When have you ever seen Mike McDaniel that demonstrative on the sideline?
And that's why he was asked about it. You're right.
He knows what's happening.
Well, he understands what's happening, but I also think he's frustrated because he's doing the best that he can, and he can't get the team to have a different result.
And in life in general, I think everybody has probably experienced this. The idea of standing by someone for so long and believing in them and then them not standing by you hurts. Right? Like, he stood by Tua for a long time, and I don't know that Tua is standing by him right now.
Well, Tua better be careful, because once they get rid of Mike McDaniel, you know who's next to blame.
I would go the other order, but I think you're right on that. Because...
Well, they don't see the general manager, so...
No, I mean, listen. If you're saying you think Mike McDaniel could get fired today...
Absolutely. I think it's on the board that Mike McDaniel gets clipped today.
Tua's relationship and play under Brian Flores got Brian Flores fired, amongst other things. Tua's relationship and play under Mike McDaniel, amongst other things, will get Mike McDaniel fired. There's one constant. It's the quarterback. All right, coming up. There is a huge NFL game this weekend, but it got even bigger with the result last night. We will get to that after I tell you about Midas.